If you're into history and love gardens, put down the remote because this show's for you. We're going to take a look at gardens that have a link to the past, coming up next. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. You know, I derive so much pleasure being able to travel around the country and see so many beautiful gardens, particularly those that have a connection to the past. At Colonial Williamsburg, we'll learn why their annual holiday displays have strict rules about the plants they can and can't use. And we'll also pick up some craft projects for our own homes. Stratford Hall will impress us with its amazing past, including a terrific boxwood garden. And I'll give you some tips on growing this shrub in your own garden. And we'll step into the kitchen at Meade Plantation. All of these places have an interesting history, and we're going to discover what makes them each so special in today's show. Plus, I'll share some of the plants with a past that I enjoy growing in my own garden. So make sure you stick around for a show that's sure to please the history buff secretly hiding in all of us. I'm here visiting Stratford Hall in Virginia. Now, this historic house is well known for being the birthplace of Robert E. Lee and other members of the famous Lee family. And this prominent place has a very prominent plant in its garden. It's the boxwood, and it plays an important role on this remarkable estate. I met with Joyce Welford, a member of the restoration team here at Stratford Hall, to talk more about this all-important shrub. You know, at this time of year, I mean, here it is December, and these gardens are glorious. And it's largely due, I think, to the evergreen nature of the box. The boxwood helps define these parterre gardens like nothing else could.
And I think it's even more prominent at this time of year. See how the boxwood outlines and defines, as well as the paths. The combination of the sort of pale gray marl with the deep green boxwood is very striking.
Now, when the foundation purchased Stratford Hall in the late 1920s, there was no boxwood here at all.
There wasn't a root of boxwood on the place. However, there was mention of boxwood by the smokehouse that was as tall as the smokehouse.
Amazing.
Uncle Wes, who was really born into slavery on the place, William Wesley Payne, and some of his descendants still work here at Stratford. He said he remembered paths being edged by boxwood, but there wasn't a piece of it left because the goats and the sheep ate it all.
Can you think of any garden in Virginia that doesn't have boxwood as a prominent part of its garden design?
Well, I haven't seen every historic garden in Virginia. I've seen a great many, and I can't think of any that I've seen where the boxwood isn't really the primary definitive material on the landscape.
It really is a signature plant for historic gardens in Virginia, I think.
It's left its mark.
While you and I may never have a boxwood display quite as large as the one here at Stratford, I do think these plants make great evergreen backdrops in the garden. So let me give you a few tips on maintaining these plants. First of all, pruning, however uncomfortable it is for us, is necessary if you want to maintain a tidy and healthy garden. I learned a long time ago to get the look I want from my hedges, I need to prune them probably more than once a year, usually early in the spring and then later in the summer to shape them up a bit. Now, if you wait too late in the season to trim them, they don't have time to harden off and the foliage can be damaged with the first cold weather. So as you can see with these boxwoods, they put on a lot of growth since I pruned them last spring. I can't emphasize enough how much I depend on hedges for my garden structure. And I find that I always fall back on a few basic techniques when it comes to pruning them. You see, I like to start with a pair of sharp shears. Dull ones actually tear the stems, but sharp ones make a nice clean cut, which encourages faster healing. When I make my cuts, I like to make them on a bevel where the bottom is a little further out than the top. You see, this will encourage plenty of light on those lower limbs, and keep my plants from losing their leaves at the bottom and becoming leggy and unsightly. The other nice thing about pruning is that it makes them thicker and denser. It's a nice backdrop for all of my favorite flowers. The excitement is just starting. Next stop, Colonial Williamsburg, where we'll learn why this squirrel is so happy and get some holiday decorating tips for ourselves, so don't go away. We're in Colonial Williamsburg today to soak up the atmosphere of this historic place during the holiday season. The craftsmanship, skill, and ingenuity of our colonial ancestors is apparent everywhere. I'd like to share a glimpse into past holiday traditions here, as well as how their Christmas season is celebrated today. So Susan, what are you putting together here?
What I'm going to put together is an apple cone, and we use these to decorate tables primarily here. And one of the things I'm doing is preparing for the apple cone is I'm taking magnolia leaves. Usually use a broad leaf around the base of the apple cone.
For the cone to sit on.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you leave the stem on it, it has a lump in the back of it. So we cut the stem off.
So now you just take the leaves and you make a ring.
Right, and we found you can either use Scotch tape or a regular stapler.
So what's the next level, Susan, after we get the magnolias all placed?
Well, after you get your base set and movable, then you just place your cone on top and make sure it's in the center.
Now this is a wooden cone that you sell here at Colonial Williamsburg.
Yes, we do. Actually, we sell two sizes, and this is the large size. And it has the nails impaled all over it, which make putting the fruit on very easy. And the ones on the top, you can see there's a real strong nail in the center. That's because typically you put a pineapple on the top.
With the cone form in place, what's the next step?
Well, you start impaling your fruit. Start at the bottom.
You start with a few red apples.
Yeah. Now, I have a smaller apple. You have a red delicious apple.
Right.
And you see how it's pointed? Mm-hmm. See how it has that point there?
Right.
When we do our decorations here in Williamsburg, we do not exhibit this side of the apple. We use red delicious apples because of their size and their color. They're very, very shiny compared to a lot of apple varieties. But in the 18th century, they did not have red delicious apples.
Yes, this is a late 19th century
Exactly.
variety.
So we are emulating 18th century apples. And they would all have been cooking apples, so they would have been round. So we never show the back side of the apples in any of our decorations. So we'll stick our first apple on there. There you go. And you put your larger fruits, if you're doing mixed fruits, on the bottom. And you try not to get the same two next to each other.
So if someone comes to Colonial Williamsburg during the Christmas season, they may be surprised to not see any Christmas trees around.
That probably does puzzle people when they come to Williamsburg at Christmas time. But Christmas trees had not become part of the Christmas celebration in the 18th century. So we don't have Christmas trees on display here.
So we'll start with the smaller fruit now to bring it up to a little tighter
right, we're going to
point.
bring it up. Last but not least, we put the pineapple on top.
How's that? All right, now we'll just kind of go along and tuck in with the boxwood.
Right, this is where you cover all the things, all the little holes that you haven't filled.
Just kind of break them off, small pieces, tuck them in.
And you don't have to use boxwood. You know, boxwood is traditional at Williamsburg. But I like to use cedar, just about anything. So then you kind of make a little ring of your foliage around the top, because that's where most of the cone shows through.
Susan, thank you so much for showing us this beautiful example of what you all do here.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and I hope your stay here is a pleasant one.
Thank you.
And you'll come back and see us again.
Will do. Well, I'm certainly not a stickler for using only plants from the time period of my home. I do enjoy having a few historically accurate plants around, and when we come back, we'll take a look. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome back. Today's show is centered on gardens with a past. In my garden, the turn of the century cottage is the centerpiece. You see, the garden literally revolves around it, which is why in my beds you'll find plants that pay homage to the time period of the home. For instance, there are hollyhocks, like this one called Zebrina. It's French, which I grow in my front borders. Now, Zebrina's been around for a long time. In fact, it's been cultivated since the days of Charlemagne. And hollyhock Zebrina has been popular in American gardens since the 1800s. And what would a cottage garden be without Clematis? Now, whether you say Clematis or Clematis, it doesn't really matter, because this is one of the most outstanding vines you can grow in your garden. It's easy to see why they're called the queen of the vines with these gorgeous flowers. By the late 1800s in England, Clematis were so popular, there were over 200 species, varieties, and hybrids in cultivation. This is a great plant for mixing with sun-loving plants like climbing roses. But did you know that the feet or the roots of this vine actually prefer a little shade? Now, one of my favorites isn't one of these overblown hybrids at all. It's actually a species called Sweet Autumn Clematis, and it came to the U.S. in 1877 when seeds were brought from Russia to the Arnold Arboretum in Boston. It's a real knockout fall performer. Now, if you've been watching my shows for any time at all, you know how much I love roses, especially old-fashioned ones like Frau Karl Druski. You see, this rose was introduced in 1901 and also goes by the name White American Beauty, or it's sometimes called Snow Queen because of its large, showy white blossoms. It's one of the most popular white roses in history. It grows over my arbor in the fountain garden. Well, these are just a few examples of plants that I grow in my garden that are appropriate to the period of the home. Now, don't get me wrong, I love all kinds of plants. I'm a hopeless plant fanatic, so I had a lot of new ones in there because there's so many great colors and varieties to choose from. Now let's shift gears and let's take a look at some viewer mail. I have a letter here from Dave in California, and he writes, "My wife just got a new job, and for the first time, she has a window in her office. She wants to grow a couple of plants, but she doesn't know what to grow. Can you help me with this?" Well, Dave, have you ever thought about succulents? They may look out of this world, but they really have a certain charm. I spoke with Robin Stockwell of Succulent Gardens in Carmel, California, and he told me why these plants are winning fans left and right. Robin, do you find that succulents are becoming more popular with the general public?
Alan, I do find that the succulents really handle our lifestyle, and because of that, they are very popular with the public. You can leave them for long periods of time. You can put them in small spaces, which many of us have to live in. And I think that the harsh environments they came from make them well suited to our lifestyle. Look at the color and texture.
Gosh, it's amazing.
Even though these are really weird plants, you need to understand that these plants are like other plants. You get in there and you play with them. Put them on your windowsill, put them in an odd-shaped dish, have fun with them, get dirty.
Just use a little imagination.
Absolutely.
Oh, and back to Dave's question about getting a plant for his wife's office. If succulents aren't her cup of tea, then there's a whole list of easy-to-grow houseplants on my website. That's PAlanSmith.com. And while you're there, you can also sign up for my free weekly newsletter, where among other things, I answer a sampling of viewer questions that come in each week. Check it out, it's a lot of fun. All right, take a look at this picture. It's a beautiful plantation in Nashville, Tennessee. And when we come back, we're going to visit Belle Meade and get a recipe from their fantastic chef. Welcome to the queen of the Tennessee plantations, Belle Meade. What started as a log cabin and 250 acres on the Natchez Trace is now a Greek revival antebellum mansion with a place in history. At its peak, Belle Meade encompassed 5,400 acres in Nashville and was world-renowned for its thoroughbred horses. Today it's not horses, but history attracting visitors to Belle Meade. Oh, and the cooking of one great chef, Martha Stamps.
I call this a watercress pesto. It's really not a true pesto because pesto usually has nuts in it. But you whip it up in the food processor and I think you'll really love the taste. So I put the watercress in first and kind of stuff it down around the blade so it won't get caught up. This is grated Parmesan cheese. You want to use the best quality that you can, but the real key is just to grate it yourself. The stuff that's already shredded just loses flavor really quickly. And we have some fresh chopped garlic. It's about 2 teaspoons. This is a really good, strong Dijon mustard, and you don't find that in most pestos either. And then just some good quality olive oil, coarse sea salt, and some black pepper. I like to put in the Parmesan cheese and the Dijon mustard, the chopped garlic, and just a little bit of the black pepper and the salt. Then you just put the top on, and I turn this on and pour the oil through the feed tube, and it will just emulsify into a beautiful paste. And that's it. Here is the finished product. It's this beautiful green color, and you're going to love the flavor.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.